In the 8th century, along the shores of England, long Viking ships sailed in, bringing fierce Norse warriors bent on plunder. This marked the beginning of the Viking raids, a brutal chapter in the history of Britain. These early raids were typically small in scale, with Norse warriors landing their longships along the coast, launching fast, violent attacks on coastal villages, towns, and especially monasteries. But in 865, things changed in a big way when a much larger Viking force known as the Great Heathen Army invaded East Anglia. This wasn't just a raid, it was a full-scale invasion with the goal of taking over. The Great Heathen Army was led by famous Viking leaders like Halfdan Ragnarsson and Ivar the Boneless. They started in East Anglia and swept through the northern kingdoms, one after another, taking land and claiming towns. These territories would eventually become part of what we know as the Danelaw, a portion of England ruled by Viking law and custom, forming the base of Norse influence over much of the land. But it wasn't long before one figure rose among the Viking leaders, a man whose name would become legendary, Guthrum. Guthrum was a skilled warrior and a cunning leader. He would become one of the most powerful Viking kings in England, aiming to take over Wessex, the last Anglo-Saxon kingdom that was still resisting Viking domination. In the autumn of 872, the Great Army returned to Northumbria to quash a rebellion against its puppet regent, Ecgbert. Northumbria was a crucial area for the Vikings, and they intended to keep it under control. The army stayed through the winter in Torksey, preparing for their next moves. By the following year, they were reported in Repton, a key area in the district of Mercia. By 874, the Vikings made their next major conquest, taking over Mercia and deposing King Burgred. In his place, they installed Ceolwulf, a puppet regent loyal to the Danes. Mercia, once a powerful Anglo-Saxon kingdom, was now under the control of the Great Heathen Army. After the victory in Mercia, the army made a strategic decision to split. Halfdan, one of the Viking leaders, took a portion of the army north to continue campaigns against the Picts and the Britons of Strathclyde. Meanwhile, the other half of the Great Army, led by Guthrum, moved south to conquer Wessex, the only Anglo-Saxon kingdom still holding out against the Viking. Wessex was led by Alfred the Great, who had managed to keep his kingdom free from Norse control, but Guthrum was determined to change that. In 876, Guthrum and his forces launched a series of bold attacks on Wessex, beginning with the capture of Wareham. Wareham was strategically significant, providing Guthrum with a fortified position deep within enemy territory. Alfred, however, wasn't willing to surrender his kingdom so easily. He rallied his forces and managed to hold the Vikings at bay, eventually forcing a temporary truce with Guthrum. But the peace was short-lived. In 878, Guthrum broke the truce and launched a surprise attack on Alfred's winter quarters in Chippenham. This was a strategic gamble. By attacking in the depths of winter, when defenses were down and most soldiers were unprepared, Guthrum aimed to take Alfred and his kingdom by surprise. The sudden attack forced Alfred to flee for his life. Isolated from his forces, he found refuge in the marshlands of Athelney, a remote area of Somerset. Though it seemed as if Guthrum had gained the upper hand, Alfred's retreat to Athelney became a turning point. In hiding, he gathered loyal supporters and rebuilt his strength. By spring, Alfred emerged from Athelney with a new army, determined to reclaim his kingdom. In May 878, he confronted Guthrum's forces at the Battle of Edington. This would be a decisive clash, one that would determine the future of Wessex and the fate of the Viking incursions into England. In a fierce battle, Alfred's forces overcame Guthrum's army, securing a critical victory. Defeated, Guthrum had no choice but to surrender to Alfred. However, Alfred chose a path of diplomacy rather than destruction. He offered Guthrum peace under the condition that he convert to Christianity. Guthrum accepted Alfred's terms, agreeing to be baptized and to adopt a Christian name, Athelstan. The Treaty of Wedmore was established, creating a formal boundary between Wessex and the Viking-controlled Danelaw. Guthrum would rule East Anglia as a Christian king. After his baptism, Guthrum returned to East Anglia under a new identity. Though a former Viking warlord, he now ruled as a Christian king for his Saxon subjects and simultaneously as a Norse king for his Viking followers. In 890, after years of peace, Guthrum died and was buried at Hadley in Suffolk. His life's journey from a fierce Viking leader to a Christian king left a lasting mark on England.